if everything's okay so far. I must apologise, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience, but we've just spent the last half hour having technical difficulties. I think my end, in the sense that we couldn't get my microphone to work, but now it seems to be working, everybody. So good morning, and my name's Colin Foley, and I'm the Training Director for the ADHD Foundation, and welcome to this year's Witherslack Group Virtual Send Conference, The Future of Children in a Changing World. And it's my great pleasure to be opening this conference for you all. Can I just thank you all for taking time out of your busy lives to access this. You have a wonderful program today. I hope you're going to stick with us for the whole day. We've got some great speakers. So with a little bit of restricted time this morning because of the technical difficulties that we had, I'm going to talk to you about social media and empowering and educating young people. What I might do, everybody, is that I might jump through my slides a little bit quite quickly because we've lost a little bit of time because of the technical difficulties. So if this is the first time that you've engaged with us, thanks Molly, you can see on the screen there, you can see the website address of the ADHD Foundation, the neurodiversity charity. We have been working in partnership with the Witherslack Group for many years. And it's a very special partnership for us, and we're very pleased and proud to be associated with the Witherslack Group, a great group of schools doing wonderful work with neurodiverse youngsters. If you want more information about neurodiversity, there is a lot, of course, on the Witherslack Group website, but if you want some more information, have a look at our website as well. Okay, thanks, Molly. So we're here today to talk about social media and educating and empowering children and young people. As you know, social media is a very integral part of the lives of many children and young people. They are growing up in a world where information is very easily accessible, where they are bombarded with information. And the process of childhood, of course, is the process of learning how to adapt to that. And some of you, of course, I don't know how old you are, I'm 57, so I grew up in an age without mobile phones and without laptops and devices, and that came to me during my adulthood. For some of you, that will be the case as well, but not everybody. But just look at the slide, everybody. Look at how ingrained this is in the lives of children and young people today in 2023. With 15% of young people, this is according to a very, very good piece of research that was done by Ofcom a couple of years ago. And look at this, that 15% of children and young people are actually streaming their own content. They're not just observers or consumers of social media, they are creating it for themselves. The most popular platforms, as you can see there, YouTube and TikTok, right across the different phases of childhood, but 31% are posting content that they've made themselves, especially teenagers. Thanks, Molly. So some more information for you on this slide, everybody. But what's interesting about this slide, of course, and the information there, if you look down towards the bottom, is that the correct age for children, of course, to be accessing most social media is 13. But we have, you know, a lot of parents who did not know this. I remember when I was a teacher once involved in doing some sessions for 11 to 12-year-olds around their social media use, and we were doing some online safety work with them, and we found out that actually most of those 11, 12-year-olds had their own social media profiles, and they actually didn't know that they weren't supposed to have social media profiles at that age. Look at the bottom statistic, everyone. It just shows you the level of pressure that there is upon some parents and carers to allow their child to use social media. 38% of these parents who were surveyed were allowing their 8 to 11-year-old children to have their own profiles on social media and to access it. Thanks, Molly. Hope you're okay, everybody, with the pace here, because I'm trying to do a little bit of catch up with the time that we've missed. But what's fascinating, everyone, is the views and attitudes of children and young people when it comes to social media, and the difference between what they're saying and what the reality is. And one of the real issues that we've got, of course, at the moment is about the trustworthiness of what material your child is accessing. And when I was involved in online safety work in school, this is what we were teaching the children about what you're reading and what you're seeing. How do you know that it is legitimate? Or you are not being fed lies, for example. And one of the big issues, of course, at the moment is the development of AI, and artificial intelligence is just going to exacerbate this. Artificial intelligence offers incredible opportunities for us in the future. I've been doing some work recently on how this could help, particularly neurodiverse people, both in education and in the workplace, the opportunities of artificial intelligence. But with every opportunity, of course, there comes a challenge. And one of the challenges, of course, is that in the hands of what are called bad actors, artificial intelligence could be used even more to create even more authentic looking and slick representations of information that's not true. But look at the research that's come out about this, everybody. The majority of 12 to 17-year-olds said that they could identify where some material online is either fake or it's real. And they did a test on a group of teenagers, and only 11% of them were actually correct in identifying what is real or what was fake. Okay, so people, for example, these young people thought that if there was a profile picture or if there were photos attached to a material, then that must be real. There's a lot of social media influencers now, aren't they, who are presenting and creating a lot of content for young people that has a motive to it. For example, they're being paid to promote products, for example. That's how they make a living, as a social media influencer. But do children know that that's what's actually happening to them? And you can see on the slide there, majority of children said that they could recognize when they're being sold or trying to be sold things online. Okay, but actually, when they looked into some examples of social media influencers, young people were saying that they didn't really recognize or that they thought that the influencer was just liked those products and enjoyed it. They didn't realize that subliminally they were trying to be sold things. So there are lots of challenges, thanks Molly, connected with the amount of social media material that young people are being fed at the moment. Should we be concerned? Yes, absolutely. And if you can, just have a quick scan of what's on the slide there. 35% of children and young people were showing or displaying behaviours online that are potentially risky. Surfing, in a privacy mode, deleting, browsing, histories, and lack of understanding and knowledge of how to report or flag functions where, for example, there is offensive or discriminatory material, or when the child is concerned that there might be ulterior motives to people who are contacting them. On the good news of this really was that 60% of parents thought that their children had a good balance overall between their use of social media and the other things that were going on in their lives. But that is a significant group of parents and carers who were genuinely concerned about the social media use of their sons and daughters there. Thanks, Molly. So, within all of this discussion, those of you who have accessed this talk this morning because you are concerned about your child's social media use, what I'd like to say to you this morning very clearly is that let's look at the behaviour and not the technology. Let's not blame the technology. If your child thinks that you are trying to stop them accessing the benefits of the technology as they see it, then that might be quite difficult for your child to understand and comprehend. So if you are thinking or planning to talk to your child about their social media use, let's start with the positives, because there are many, many positives to social media. I look back at myself in my own life and think, you know, how I use social media now, how I access information and learn things and find things out really quickly now for me as an adult. If I'd have had those opportunities when I was a child or a teenager. In my own career, I was a teacher for 25 years. And I saw the change. So I was working with sixth formers for years who were using their phones within my lessons really, really positively. You know, so instead of them asking me constantly to give them the answers, I could say, go and find this out for yourself, right? And use your discretion and use, you know, your discernment about whether or not you think something is legitimate or not. We would have those conversations. I think one of the if we're talking about education for the 21st century, this has to become one of the central features, doesn't it? Because this is the world that a child is growing up in, and we need to be teaching children how they are judging what the material that they are accessing online. So the benefits to learning, I talk to parents all the time, and they talk about, you know, social media and the internet about being really, really important in terms of the education of their children. We can communicate with anyone, anywhere, from the comfort of our own home. People can build relationships. The social media and the internet have been incredibly democratizing, haven't they? They've given a voice to many people who didn't have a voice before. Years ago, kind of a decade ago, when we were starting out as the ADHD Foundation, social media was really important for us in terms of finding our tribe, finding and connecting with other people who were interested in neurodiversity. And let's just think about the neurodiverse mind. You know, if you've got a son or daughter who's autistic, you will know some of the challenges that your son and daughters have with communication, face-to-face interaction, personal relationships on a regular basis. They might have challenges with that. Actually interacting remotely with people online might be a really preferred way that your autistic son or daughter likes to communicate. A friend of mine who is bringing up her grandson who's got ADHD and autism. He's now in his late teens. He has really healthy and very constructive relationships and friendships online with people who he's known for years, some of whom he's never met, of course, but he's been interacting with them remotely because in terms of his neurology, that's a really effective way and successful way that he likes to interact. If we think about ADHD and you think about the kind of attentional dysregulation, but also that hyper-focus and cognitive hyperactivity, the immediate reward that you get from accessing information very, very quickly and the constant stimulation would really work with you know, the neurology of somebody with ADHD. So there can be real benefits in terms of how we access information through social media for neurodiverse children and young people. So the message from me, everyone, is start with the positives. Recognize why your child is accessing social media and what they're getting from it and the positives of it. So you are not saying, you know, we want to stop this, you know, from your life. What we need to be looking at is how do they do it, accept that this is part of their life, and how do we do it so that your child is safe online and has a good balance in their life. Thanks, Molly. Okay, so what are some of the risks and some of the negatives of excessive social media use? Well, one thing that we're really interested in the ADHD Foundation, of course, is sleep. We know that for many, many youngsters who are neurodiverse, there are real challenges with sleep, and you know this better than I do, of course. But screens in the bedroom, particularly the blue lights from screens, can significantly impact upon sleep. And we always say, you know, start early with this. It's going to be a challenge for you, isn't it, trying to get the screens out of a bedroom of a 16-year-old. But if we start earlier with this, especially if your child is struggling with their sleep, to try to keep screens out of the bedroom as much as possible, to make the bedroom isn't a fun palace where we enjoy ourselves and we play. If there is real challenges with sleep, the bedroom needs to be the place that we sleep and nothing else, really. And that needs to start from as early as you possibly can. But if you do have a teenager who is really struggling with their sleep, it's about having the conversation around, you know, that excessive screen time, especially in the evening leading up to sleep, is actually stimulating your child and not helping your child to get to sleep. Now, I don't need to talk at length, do I, about cyberbullying, about some of the unhealthy influences. There's been significant coverage of this in the media around things like eating disorders and other mental health conditions, for example, where there is material online that children and young people are accessing that is not healthy for them as well. The cyberbullying, when I was a teacher, we would often spend Monday mornings with teenagers dealing with stuff that had happened over the weekend online outside of school. And of course, they were bringing some of this stuff into school as well. And it was, you know, a lot of time was being spent on that with some youngsters. And then, of course, you know, everybody is clear about grooming and exploitation as well. So there are real risks, as you well know, for social media contact for children and young people. And if we think about autism in the mix of this, and when I go into schools and I talk about autism, I will very often start by saying, you know, are you doing online safety work, particularly with autistic girls, so that they can recognize the signs of when somebody is not this is not a healthy interaction. It's this contact that somebody wants to make with you. There might be something behind this that you need to be mindful of. The constant distraction, of course. You know, I talked about a minute ago, I talked about some of the benefits for children and young people who have attentional regulation difficulties, but again, opportunities come with challenges, so that there can be challenges with that constant distraction. We talk about homework, for example, for children and young people with ADHD, and making sure that if you're using the phone, that it's used and then it's put to one side, or if you're not, that the phone is nowhere near your child, so that that's not a constant distraction. There's a lovely website, everyone, called www.mycomputermyway.com, where you can adapt your child's device so that, for example, they can have notifications don't come up, so that there is as little distraction for your child from other aspects of social media when they're working on their device. Clearly, one of the great influences on good mental health and well-being is physical activity. Physical activity, of course, is critical for children and young people with ADHD. The more movement they have, the more they'll be able to regulate their attentional system, for example. So the more and more time children and young people spend sat at devices, some of them can have very sedentary lifestyles. And I hear this from parents a lot, where they'll say, I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to get my child out to do this and that, but their real preferred kind of way of relaxing and enjoying themselves and having fun is to sit at this device. So there are challenges in terms of mental health and well-being, but also physical health as well. If children have got very, very sedentary and passive lifestyles at screens. Now, there can be issues, of course, around communication. Some of the way in which we communicate online lacks some of the learning that your child is so important to your child in terms of face-to-face, in-person communication. There can be a lack of emotion, for example. There can be a lack of empathy online. People can behave online in ways that they would never behave face to face and in person with people. So the communication that is happening can be quite limited in that sense. And then, of course, if your child's face is in a screen all the time, or they're sat, what is the impact of that on the family? The connections between the families, the family intimacy, those important bonds, you know, as the primary caregiver for your child, you know, how far is that being challenged, if you like, or hindered by the fact that your child is spending so much time accessing social media? Thanks, Molly. So let's get to, I know that I'm going at quite a pace, everybody. I do appreciate that. Thanks, Molly. If you could just change the slide for us, great. Thank you very much. So let's talk about. I'm going to talk for about another 10 minutes about this, but let's talk about what we can actually do about this and how you can support and educate and empower your child to use and access the benefits of social media in a really healthy and constructive way. And I've already said, everyone, it's down there on the bottom, that when you are talking to your child, is to focus on the behaviors that you're seeing and not on the technology. If your child is getting the message very clear that you want them to stop using the technology, that's going to be very, very challenging for your child, of course. So let's talk about the behaviors and leave the tech at the moment. So let's have the talk. You know, a lot of parents talk about the talk, don't they? I mean, there are a number of talks that you have with your child, but obviously you will make the judgment about when is the most appropriate way to do it. And I always remember doing some online safety work, and I remember a colleague of mine standing up in front of a group of 11-year-olds and just saying very, very clearly, you know, whatever you post online is there forever for everyone, anyone who can access it, to see it. And she put up some images, some of them were a bit blurred, rightly so, of things that children and young people had put up online, you know, and she said, can you imagine if you did this? Can you imagine when you are 30, 40, 50, when you're an adult, when you've got your own children, when you're a grandparent, right? Those images are still there somewhere online and people could see them. I would talk to your child, for example, about you know, some celebrities who, you know, have come into the public eye for whatever reason, and then some journalist is trawling through all of their social media posts to pick out things that they said 10, 15 years ago and making a fuss about it. I know that some employers, for example, will go through people's social media posts to kind of judge what this person is like, and it might be judging you negatively for things that you were doing, you know, 10 years before you were applying for this job, for example. But it's being really, really clear and upfront and explicit with your children about this, you know, and saying, you know, don't share anything that, you know, online. Don't think of this as a different world where you're going to share things that you would never ordinarily share. You wouldn't share photographs like this, you know, hard copy photographs with people. So don't do it online. And talking about that difference in people's behavior when they are online, where they think that they're safe and that they're removed and they can say what they like and do what they like online, and that there is no repercussion for that. Those keyboard warriors, you could give examples to your children of people who've been prosecuted because of things that they've posted online, and encouraging your child, you know, not to engage with this kind of behavior, but also for themselves as adolescents, when they're young and they're experimenting and they're trying out and they're grappling with certain ideas, right? They might be tempted to post things. Always to think twice before you post anything, and think about, do I want this image or these comments, right, put out there for the rest of your life for anybody to see. Okay, and talk about and model for your child what is the benefits of face-to-face communication. What else do we get from this in terms of that bonding, the relationships, the intimacy, but also the complexity of face-to-face communication? That's, you know, it's much more desirable and preferable, right, to that remote style of communication. Thinking about educating yourselves, obviously, about privacy, software and privacy settings. Do you understand what they are? Okay, do you know how to access them? Do you know how to set them up for your child? And there's lots of information, and I'll share with you some organisations in a few minutes that can support with this. But if you are concerned, okay, is talking about asking your child to show you what they are doing online as a way of reassuring yourself about what they are doing online. And there is also the conversation to be had increasingly as your child gets older is, you know, if you see things online and you're not sure, you know, if it's true or not, then to have the conversation with you, to share the post that they are questioning with you. And so you can have these conversations about, well, who is posting this? Right? Do we know that that organization or that person is legitimate? Why do you think, what the motives might be for this person to share with this? How do we double check information? How do we look for other sources for the same piece of information so that we can double check whether or not something is real or not? And this is, I mentioned it before, this is a skill that I believe that all children and young people will increasingly have to learn. In the world that we're living in, this notion of fake news, where, you know, where people are constantly questioning whether or not things are true. When things happen, there's very often conspiracy theories online that get an incredible amount of traction and interest in this, and that can be really, really damaging. But also, you know, you don't want your child to be growing up into a world where they're not sure at all. They are insecure about the information that they are receiving. Where does it come from? What is the person or the organisation's credentials? What might be their motive for sharing what they've shared, and how do I double check to make sure? And teaching your children and modeling it for them, how you do this and how you receive information and how you are reassured that that information is authentic and real. Sorry, Molly, if you just go back on that. Okay. Also, look out for some certain behavioural signs. So, for example, if your child is constantly, you know, looking at their phone, if they're glued to their phone, if as soon as a notification comes in, they're picking their phone up and they've got to respond to, they've got to look at it immediately, and you're seeing this pattern of behaviour, could be a sign that your child may be experiencing some cyberbullying, right, and is hypervigilant. One of the you know, clear features of anxiety is that hypervigilance to threat. So is your child, you know, just unable not to look at open notifications as soon as they come on to their phone? Are they doing this constantly? And also, what I've said at the bottom, of course, is to act. To trust your gut, trust your instincts here. And if you think you are concerned about your child's behaviour in relation to social media, do something. Act now, don't leave it. Thanks, Molly. Okay, do some research, of course, around the apps. When I said, you know, find out what your child is accessing online, do your own research and find out, you know, if this app, for example, has a private messaging feature, which very often they are. How do you disable that to prevent unwanted people from messaging your child? The older your child gets, so you're teaching your child how they can do it for themselves automatically. A lot of age verification controls on social media are not robust. You know, you can say, well, you know, I'm any age there, so supervise this as well. Look into what are the age verification controls of any app that your child is using, and how might you set that for your child instead of leaving your child to do that. But also, let's think about what I call building competencies. And when I deliver courses on mental health and well-being, I'll often talk about the 7 features of good mental health, and ask people to consider for themselves where they are with this right now. And one of them is what I call building competencies. Now, it comes from Kenneth Ginsberg's work. Kenneth Ginsberg is an American psychologist who talks about resilience with children and young people. He talks about the 7 C's of resilience. Have a look at his work, Kenneth Ginsberg, if you're interested, particularly around teenagers. And he talks about the 7 C's, and he talks about one of them being competencies. And this means being good at something in your life. This could be a skill, it could be a talent, it could be a subject, knowing a lot about a particular subject. We know that is often a feature of autism, isn't it? Where a lot of autistic youngsters can have these immersive, absorbing interests where they can retain an incredible amount of factual information about certain specific things. How do we build this with our children with an aim for activities that are away from screens? So what can you offer your child that is going to be just as, or hopefully more, engaging than the time that they spend online? I know that many parents will be putting controls in place in terms of how long children can spend online. But what I often think about that is, okay, so if you're putting a limit on the amount of time your child spends online or accessing social media, what's happening in the rest of the time? So that could be building something just as interesting and engaging for your child to do that's not to do with computers. And it might need, for example, you to do some facilitation here, for you to get stuck in and do something with your child, for example, or give suggestions to them, or find out about local clubs and organisations and things that they could join, and do the research for yourself like this. But it's looking at what is the value in terms of your child developing skills or knowledge that they would feel good about, that they will feel motivated to want to continue to do, that's not all about accessing on screens, for example. So if it's a subject that they're interested in, let's encourage them to find information about that subject through books, for example, or through research, or through podcasts, anything that's away from looking at screens all day. But also, let's think about family time. And I know that family time can become more challenging, especially the older that your child gets. Teenagers, of course, will need time away from you. You must give them time away from you. It's really important for them to rehearse to become an adult, which is what adolescence is, of course. But also is think about, how do we create family time? How do we do activities that your child will engage with, that they can do as a family? And remember, what is always a good strategy with this is for your child to have some agency and control over what you are doing. So it's not about you thinking about activities and your child then joining in with this. It's about co-designing activities with your child, alongside your child, but carving out quality family time, right? And you are modeling and demonstrating for your child that, you know, there is a whole world out there full of fun and interesting things to do. The whole world does not revolve around, and the only interest in your life does not revolve around that screen in your bedroom where you sit at all day. So let's model and show to our sons and daughters that there are alternatives to accessing social media. You can put your phone down for a bit, and you model this as well. I was watching a film recently This was about parents with very young children and looking at the difference in the behaviour of children when their parents are engaging with them than when their parents are there but sat on their phone, accessing their phone. And the whole behaviour and the kind of experimentation and energy levels of children was really suppressed when the parent is there but is only engaging with their phone. So model it for your children as well. Show them that there are other things in life that are just as or even more interesting and fun and engaging and good for self-esteem and well-being than accessing social media constantly. Thanks, Molly. Okay, we've only got 5 minutes, everyone. I know that this was a little bit of a whistle-stop tour because we lost about 20 minutes at the start of it. So thank you for sticking with me for that. And again, I will apologise about the technical difficulties at the start of the session. Just on the slide here, if you would like further information or further strategies of how you can support your child if you are concerned about their social media use, Internet Matters, I put it at the top because that's the one that I would really recommend out of this, but of course the others are all legitimate and long established organisations doing this. But if you can't stay for the Q&A now, although we've only got a couple of minutes for Q&A now, and I apologise to that, of course, is thank you very much for accessing this presentation. I hope you're going to stay with us for the rest of the day and enjoy some great presentations that are coming your way later